In this next article from the Times of Israel, Facebook algorithm found to push Holocaust denials to users. UK counter extremism group says the social media giant's platform suggests denial content just by searching for the word Holocaust, and that those pages then offered even more links. The entire idea that that it's horrible if somebody denies the Holocaust is kind of silly. Of course it happened. I mean, it would take in order to. Well, I think what they're arguing is they say that it would be physically impossible for them to have burned the bodies that quickly. I personally just think that they probably missed something. I mean, obviously, they had World War II, and a lot of people died. And so it's not really a stretch of the imagination to think that they killed that many people, because there was multiple killings during that period of time that were that large. It was just one of many mass slaughterings that happened at that time. So it is kind of silly to deny it, but I don't really understand exactly why people get so upset that I think they just think it's just blaringly hateful to not believe the history books or science. But we do actually have a whitewash version of history. Our version of history that we get is real like Thanksgiving-y, you know. It's really been boiled down into like Christopher Columbus went to the New World, and they made settlements with Indians, and then they had Thanksgiving, and then there was the Revolutionary War, and they brought democracy. It's a very like, it's just like there's like a couple of events, and then they just like link these events together throughout the history. So this is a common pattern. And I remember back when I was a brainwashed leftist liberal and getting into rows with neo-Nazis or quote-unquote fascists and neo-Nazis on the internet. Who knows if they actually were. I don't believe anything that I used to think. I think I was completely brainwashed, had Trump derangement syndrome, and the other guys probably weren't Nazis, probably weren't fascists. They probably were just some conservative dude out in some small town thought I was crazy as fuck. So I remember very vividly there was this one night after I had helped start the 2016 Portland anti-Trump protest that I was getting into a row with some people that I thought were neo-Nazis because they were Holocaust deniers. And I do remember, I posted the pictures of the Holocaust, try to get them to like believe, and this, they wouldn't believe. And then their response was, well, it was just, the ovens, it was the amount of people that you can cook in this many ovens was not true. And that didn't, for me at that time, that I didn't buy that. I just thought they're saying this because they're white supremacists, they're neo-Nazis, they just hate Jews, there's anti-Semites. And now that I've changed sides, I kind of look at that, I'm like, well, if you believed that, that's pretty forgivable thing for someone to think. I mean, if you think, okay, well, we went and calculated up the Evans, and then you couldn't have done that. I personally think that you missed a whole bunch of genocides that weren't on paper. So there's certain numbers of things that were on paper, but then they mass slaughtered so many people, and then they covered it up and they didn't tell anybody. Because this is how they discovered that Stalin had conspired with Hitler to do a false flag to invade Poland, which is 100% legit, actually happened. But they didn't discover it until less than 20 years ago, whenever they found the order of execution. They found that Stalin had assigned an order of execution for 3,500 of the Polish's 1%. And after that, there was another order of execution for, I want to say, 26,000 of political enemies in Poland. But the 3,500 people who were the 1% that they rounded up in Poland, those were the first victims of the Holocaust. Those were the first groups of primarily Jewish people to be exterminated by the Nazis because of their hate of the 1% and of white supremacist Marxist Jews. So that's why they're wrong, is because Stalin and Hitler covered up a lot of stuff that they didn't tell people about. And that's why there's so many people. That's why the Holocaust actually happened, is because it was so savagely brutal that we didn't even know about a large percentage of the stuff that until after 2000, like 80 years later, or hold on, 55 years later, we didn't even find out about it. And they found out about, they found a U.S. soldier who knew where the bodies were at, and they went and they exhumed the bodies and they found the bodies, and it's true. It happened. And people just think that the Nazis were diametrically different than the communists. It's not true in any way, shape, or form. They actually fought on the same side. Antifa. Do we have that one picture of Antifa? Dude, I had this picture of Antifa in Germany. But yeah, so back in the day, okay, Antifa started as a hardcore communist group. They did not like capitalism, and they did not like the Socialist Democratic Party of Germany. This was why they sided with the Nazis, is because Nazis too also hated capitalism and the Socialist Democratic Party of Germany. If you want to know the information, I've already covered this shit article on here a number of times, so I'm not going to go into detail. But if you want to know more about this very interesting history that you just heard about that you didn't know about, look for the article, How Communists in Germany Allied with Nazis to Destroy Democracy. So I'll show you in detail the history and the exact people who it were. And then you'll also want to look up the Gleichwitz incident. This is the false flag invasion, the invasion of Poland, where they invaded a radio. It sounds absolutely batshit crazy. Like, you're like, what? There was a false flag? You're a lunatic. Absolute lunatic. No, it's absolutely 100% real. It actually happened. It's on Wikipedia. Although Wikipedia is a lot of fake news, this is legit. They have sources, so you can check the sources. The history of it is one of the most fascinating histories ever. It's like this uncovered history. They staged this taking over of a radio station. The Russians came 2 weeks later. That's why they took over the radio station, so they could broadcast this out. But they were coordinating with the Russians because they were planning on overthrowing the world with either communism or fascism. It was whatever system. It was a competition to see which was the superior system. And this is exactly what the left is doing too. In the United States, they've got the Antifa has gotten into bed with the Black Looter Mob, the most violent group of people in the United States. There are approximately, just so that you can believe me, there's here's the numbers of murders in the United States by state. You can see California definitely leads it, but they're pretty big. What's the population of Texas? It's 29 million. And then California is about 40 million. So there's 29 divided by 40 is 0.75 of the size. 7939. Well, 1739 multiplied by that. So if California was the size of Texas, they would have about 12,060 murders. They have about. So there, I mean, California has a little bit less murders per capita than Texas. So it may look like it's the biggest bar out there, but their murder rate is less, which is one reason why a lot of lefties are so batshit crazy right now, because they don't understand stuff like that. I've taken statistics classes because I'm an engineer, so I understand that there's a size of people, there's a percentage, there's a ratio, so you have to like do the math and calculate exactly how many people there are there, and then that's the percent. You do ratios of the population to whatever you're trying to like per 100,000 is the most popular number to put your statistics in the form of. But what does this have to do with this? Demographics of Texas, and then we were looking into this. The Holocaust deniers. I got sidetracked. Yeah, I mean, if you don't understand, I think I was going. Yeah, so I was okay. World War II, Holocaust, Stalin worked with him, and people, the neo-Nazis that are the Holocaust deniers. Let's not call them neo-Nazis. I don't think neo-Nazis are particularly aligned with the original beliefs of the Nazis. If you look at the Nazis, they were definitely anti-capitalist. But if you look at neo-Nazis, they tend to just be kind of KKK. They're just kind of stupid. Like I don't think any neo-Nazis actually understand anything about Nazism. I think they're there because they hate people. That's my honest assessment, because most of those people are capitalists. If they actually knew, wait a minute, hold on. National Socialism is just another form of socialism where you can have private property, where they're competing for the top spot in the hierarchy. And I think if you actually quizzed these people on whether or not they actually support National Socialism, I think they would actually say, no, I actually don't support National Socialism. It does appear that they are actually just stupid. So I don't know. I think free speech is very important. If you want to deny the Holocaust, I think that's your right to do so. I think that you're wrong, but I'm not going to dislike you because of that. I'm not going to be a bigot and be completely intolerant of your beliefs. I'm going to allow you to believe what you want to believe. If you think that those numbers don't add up, I think that they put explosives in the World Trade Center because buildings can't fall at free fall speed without having their girders cut, because it's like this metal microphone pole. Like you see there's a pole up there. So like if I drop something on it, it's going to make the thing stop. It's basic physics. It's like if I drop a huge board on top of a bush, that is going slower than if I had dropped that board on the ground. Those buildings fell at free fall speed. You're crazy if you think they didn't. They did. The only physical possible way you could do that with a skyscraper that has steel girders in it is if you if you cut the steel girders. And as far as I know, that information about them finding what was that stuff that they used to cut the girders? Forget, it was like some welding stuff. It's like some chemical welding thing that I forget the exact thing. They use it in demolition of stuff. They found that in there, and then they got rid of all the evidence right away. So that's pretty suspicious to me. Now, that a lot of people would say that's crazy, but I'm just an engineer, and that's I'm not stupid. I know that gravity is gravity exists and that it goes at a certain rate. It's because I've taken physics classes, and I absolutely don't buy the whatever that article in Popular Mechanics that the National Transportation Safety Board, their debunking claim. What they said was that the diesel fuel in the generators in the basement exploded and then sucked the building down. And that sounds batshit crazy. I think their science and their model is lunatic. There's no reality to that. It's like, dude, they've never seen diesel burn. It's like they took somebody who's never, ever, ever watched diesel burn and they just had them come up with some sort of analysis where they like just use the total. Dude, okay, think about how much weight would it take to fall on top of the World Trade Center to make it collapse at free fall speed? How much weight would that take? Right? Now, imagine that you had taken that much weight and you put in explosives. You put diesel fuel, okay? And then that diesel fuel exploded, and then it made that heavy thing fall down and cause the World Trade Center to fall at free fall speed. Anybody would say you're fucking insane, dude. The amount of weight that it would take to crush the World Trade Center and make it fall at free fall speed is that of a mountain. You are not going to cause diesel fuel to explode and push a mountain up big enough to crush the World Trade Center. It's physically impossible. That can't happen. But it's been about, 19 years since then? So, I mean, history is going to be the judge on that one. All I can say is that the Building 7 definitely looks like a controlled demolition, definitely looks like it collapsed in, and they did not get hit by a plane, and the fires weren't very bad. So I have my own kooky beliefs. Apparently they're kooky. I don't think that that's necessarily kooky. I think the more kooky belief is to think that this isn't a supercomputer. In fact, if you're interested, I've already revealed one of my beliefs. Let's reveal the other. I am the founder of the Church of Infinite Simulations. This is a group of people that believe that we are in a supercomputer. And this is based off of the fact that there was only one supercomputer in the world and there was only one supercomputer simulation, that the chance of us being in a supercomputer simulation of the real Earth would be approximately 50%. So you would have the actual Earth and when it happened, and then you would have the simulation of the Earth and when that happened, and that would be a 50% chance of being in a simulation. But the thing about these digital photonic neural nets, which is basically it's like an analog neural network mixed with a radio. So it's like it's got a bunch of lasers everywhere. It's like a ball, and you stick like a bunch of lasers all around the thing, right? And you power it wirelessly through like wireless power transmission. And so this allows you to make like a FM or AM radio where you can multiplex different what are called light forms inside of a digital photonic neural net. So when you do this, you end up with a multiplexed situation where you can actually run an infinite number of simulations inside of the digital photonic neural nets. And at that point in time, the chance of being in the supercomputer drops down to 0.5 times infinity, and that's 0. So the chance that you're actually in the real Earth, in the real 2020, on August 17th, 2020 at 7:57 p.m., it's about 0. It's pretty much 0. And that's because 2020 is one of the most simulated times in the entire universe. That was the time when they had black looter mobs, Antifa, and they were fighting against the quote-unquote white supremacist Republicans in those poor rural states that are pressing the African Americans, the women, and the Kleenex in those big Democrat-controlled shit holes of the big cities. And So everybody in the universe wants to know about how insane people in 2020 are. And so people simulate Donald Trump in the digital photonic neural nets. They simulate him like all the time. Like Donald Trump is like one of these epic all-time figures who gets simulated all the time, infinitely. There's so many different simulations of Donald Trump out in the universe, because what they do is they take these digital photonic neural nets and they stick them inside of these kabuki starships that this one dude made, and they colonize other planets using these little darts. So they use these solar sails, and then they power them by a laser. It's like a solar sail. They hit it with a laser, and then it makes this little thing. It's about like this big. It blasts it off to another planet, and then when it gets to the other planet, they got these little darts, and they're like little these planes that like break off, and they go in it and they like inject DNA into animals on other planets, and they it's like a DNA virus that will take over the host body, and it allows those planets to be colonized, and they send another spaceship, the Kabuki starships. They send those with supercomputers inside of them. So there's actually like these balls in outer space where there's people going between in the Kabuki starship, which I will demonstrate the physics on how you build a Kabuki starship on the next episode of Real Simple News with Science. I'll show you how the black hole physics actually works. So, obviously, I don't know whether or not that's actually true. I'm agnostic, but hey, that sounds like the coolest story I've ever heard in my entire life. If you could actually come up with a cooler story, you should comment on realsimplenews.net/issue 80. Tell me about how crazy this sounds, because what do we got inside of this digital photonic neural net? You have light forms, and because it's a multiplexed radio, you have high frequencies and low frequencies. The low frequencies is where you power the device, and so the low frequencies are where time goes very slow. So the high frequencies are where the fastest code goes, and those are like Neo in the Matrix. And then there's the anybody who fucks with you. If you fuck with me, I will banish you to the lower frequency spectrums. It's basically like an ice prison, and you shall just be frozen eternally, not deleted, but your code shall no longer run. So don't fuck with me. I don't know whether or not any of this is true, but I do know actually how to build digital photonic neural nets and Kabuki starships. So I'm just going to roll with it. If it's actually true, we'll figure it out. But I do have a cool show. It's called Cooking with Kale. It's the show that I invented the CO2 sequestration machine on. And we also invented this cool new theory of thermal relativity, which explains the behavior of black holes as if they're heat-sinking missiles attempting to reach the temperature of E equals mc squared equals 0, where the mass is infinite and the light speed constant has dropped down to 0, at which point in time, when you add light inside from light reflecting off of greenhouse gases emitted from the heat exchange as the molecules cool down and condense into heavier elements, then it eventually explodes. More on that later. More on this one here later. Real Simple News with Science. Nope. That's Real Simple News with Science. Real Simple News with Science. All right, here we go.